After being married to Leo for 30 years, I thought our marriage was happy and fulfilling. I got along harmoniously with my in-laws, and we had never had an argument. Although our daughter was adopted, she was sensible and filial. Until Leo suddenly passed away in a car accident. When I was sorting out his belongings, I found the diary locked in the drawer of his desk. It was densely filled with records of his love for his widowed sister-in-law. And the daughter we adopted turned out to be the child of Leo and that woman. The lawyer read out the will he had already made long ago. That's when I learned that he had already secretly transferred all his property under his name behind my back, leaving me with a huge amount of debt. Overwhelmed by anger, I had a stroke and fell to the ground. When our daughter found me, she just calmly sat on the chair and watched me struggling in pain on the ground. It was a full half an hour before she leisurely dialed the emergency number. Due to the delay in sending me to the hospital, I suffered severe sequelae and was paralyzed in bed. In the following 3 years, I endured a difficult life under the malicious torture of the caregivers and was eventually starved to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in the 5th year of my marriage to Leo. It was also the year he was going to adopt a child. A strong sense of hunger was tearing at my internal organs. My ears were buzzing. I opened my eyes with great difficulty, and it took me a long time to see the surrounding environment clearly. It was a simple hospital room. There were 2 bottles of saline hanging on the old-fashioned saline stand by the bed. The liquid inside was flowing drop by drop into the back of my hand along the thin infusion tube. There was a poster on the yellowed wall that read "Prevent Spring Infectious Diseases." The year in the lower right corner was 1993. Before I could recover from my surprise, a deep male voice rang in my ears. "You're awake? Is there anywhere you feel uncomfortable?" I turned my head in the direction of the voice, and saw the young and handsome Leo sitting in front of the hospital bed, looking at me with a concerned expression on his face. But there was a trace of barely noticeable disgust hid and deep in his eyes. What happened to me? When I opened my mouth, I realized that my voice was incredibly hoarse. Leo frowned and his voice was tinged with some complaints. "It's all because you insisted on queuing up to buy fried dough sticks this morning. As a result, you were knocked unconscious by a motorcycle. We were supposed to go to the Welfare Institute to complete the adoption procedures. Look at you. You're just causing trouble." Memories gradually came back. I had actually returned to the day when we adopted Hope. In my previous life, in the 4th year of our marriage, Leo told me that he had been diagnosed with azoospermia. He even showed me a report. I believed it to be true. Later, we adopted an abandoned baby girl who was 3 months old from the Welfare Institute, and we named her Hope. We hoped that her life would be warm and beautiful. But I never expected that the daughter I had loved for more than 20 years was actually the child of Leo and his widowed sister-in-law, Lily. I couldn't figure out how the world could be so absurd. Leo and I had known each other since we were children. We could be considered childhood sweethearts. Later, Leo's father sent a matchmaker to propose marriage on his behalf, and our marriage was settled. After getting married, our life was plain and happy. Although we didn't have our own children, our adopted daughter was well-behaved and sensible. I also got along well with my in-laws, and there were never any disputes between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. When Hope was 7 months old, due to difficulty breathing and repeated respiratory tract infections, she was diagnosed with complex congenital heart disease. In order to treat her illness, we raised money everywhere and owed nearly 100 yuan in debt. But I never complained about anything. Since I adopted her, she was my child. When we were at our poorest, in order to buy the anticoagulant medicine that Hope had to take after having a heart stent placed, I secretly went to the blood bank to sell my blood. It wasn't until after the millennium that our life gradually got better. There was a time when I naively thought that Leo was the one who would accompany me through thick and thin. But later he died. After reading his diary, I learned that while I was selling my blood at the blood bank to raise money for the medicine, Leo used the 7 yuan he had hidden to buy Lily a fine quality jade bracelet. He wrote in his diary, "The Elliot has always been tough. She always has a way to deal with the difficulties in front of her. If worst comes to worst, she still has her brother and her parents. She can just be a bit thick-skinned and ask her parents' family for help." I turned the pages of the diary one by one. I saw them traveling all over the beautiful mountains and rivers of our country. I saw them secretly taking Hope to the amusement park. I saw my husband working hard to build his career, buying properties and luxury cars for Lily. I saw them reserving a joint burial plot for husband and wife in advance. I laughed until tears came to my eyes. But what did all of this matter? After Leo was buried, the lawyer read out his will to me and Hope. That's when I learned that in the will, apart from leaving me nearly 10 million yuan in debt and 2 adobe houses in his rural hometown that had been uninhabited for a long time, all his other property had been transferred away. Overwhelmed by anger, I had a stroke and fell to the ground. Hope just stood there silently, looking down at me as if I were an ant. It wasn't until the best rescue period had passed that she slowly dialed the emergency number. Due to the delay in sending me to the hospital, I suffered severe sequelae and was paralyzed in bed, unable to take care of my own eating, drinking, then going to the toilet, etc. In the following 3 years, I endured a difficult life under the malicious torture of the caregivers and was eventually starved to death. And during those 3 years, Hope never visited me even once. Do I really expect to adopt such an ungrateful person again? Hatred filled my chest, and my fingernails dug deeply into my palms. I raised my eyes and looked at Leo again. He was frowning and sizing me up. Seeing that I didn't say anything for a long time, he spoke. His voice was gentle but carried an undeniable dominance. After you finish these 2 bottles of saline, I'll go through the discharge procedures for you. The Welfare Institute is still waiting for us to go there and complete the adoption procedures. I said coldly with a blank expression. If you want to go through the adoption procedures, you can go by yourself. I'm not going to accompany you. Leo's voice suddenly rose. The adoption procedures require both husband and wife to be present. What's the use of me going alone? I rolled my eyes and replied with disgust. That's your business. What does it have to do with me? Probably not expecting me to answer like this. Leo's expression went blank for a moment. Just then, the door of the ward was pushed open. A fashionable woman wearing a long beige trench coat walked in, holding a bouquet of flowers in her hand. It was Leo's widowed sister-in-law, Lily. She had a beautiful face. Probably she had just given birth not long ago, and her body was plump and full, exuding an indescribable charm. But there was a faint look of worry on her face. Leo's eldest brother had died of liver cancer 3 years ago, leaving her a widow. My in-laws were not old-fashioned people. After the eldest son passed away, my in-laws suggested that Lily could remarry if she met the right person. They even prepared a dowry for her. But she knelt down in front of my in-laws, crying, saying that she was a member of the Leo family in life and would be a ghost of the Leo family in death, and she would never remarry in this life. At that time, like my in-laws, I was touched by her deep love for her late husband. In daily life, I took good care of her. I always thought of her when it came to food and daily necessities. For a period of time, Lily took a leave of absence from the drama group for nearly half a year, saying that she had a broken calf. Leo took me to the hospital to visit her. At that time, she did have a cast on her leg. I was so stupid that I even took out 2,000 yuan for her, telling her to rest and recover from her illness. After she was discharged from the hospital, she said she was going back to her parents' home to recuperate and didn't show up for more than half a year. It turned out that she had hidden away to give birth. Looking back on all the things in my previous life now, I was so stupid that I could be put in a museum. When Leo saw Lily, he stood up excitedly. Sister-in-law, why are you here? The woman barely pulled a smile on her lips. I heard that Violet had a car accident, so I took advantage of the lunch break of the drama group and rushed over to see how she was. Is she okay? Before I could answer, Leo Curtis Wells brought a stool behind Lily and replied, she's fine. The doctor said she has a mild concussion and needs to be observed. After Lily sat down, she put the flowers on the bedside table. Then she softly chided me, Violet, why were you so careless? You knew that we were going to adopt a child today, but you still insisted on going to buy breakfast. Now that you're lying in the hospital, what about the adoption of the child? Mom and Dad are still waiting at home eagerly. Now, look how disappointed they must be. She let out a faint sigh. And her eyes were full of blame and resentment. Leo chimed in at the right time. Violet. How about this? The adoption procedures are also simple. Why don't we go and complete the adoption in the afternoon? If you feel uncomfortable, I'll send you back to the hospital. I looked at the shameless couple in front of me and sneered. But at this moment, I didn't want to expose them yet. As the saying goes, catch the thief with the stolen goods, and catch the adulterer in the act. I wouldn't act rashly. In my previous life, considering that my in-laws had lost their son in their later years and had been looking forward to the arrival of the child we adopted, I did get discharged from the hospital on the same day and went to the Welfare Institute to complete the adoption procedures for Hope. But just a few months after we brought her back, Hope was diagnosed with complex congenital heart disease. The surgical fee alone required 70 to 80 yuan. This didn't even include other miscellaneous expenses. In 1993, the combined salary of Leo and me was only a little over 10 yuan. In order to treat her illness, I took out all my dowry and savings. I almost emptied my parents' pension money as well. I borrowed money from all my relatives and friends. But it was still far from enough. At that time, Leo and I lived in the staff quarters of our unit. In the end, I mortgaged my parent house in the bank to get a loan of 50 yuan. After the surgery, Hope was extremely weak and couldn't be left alone. I had to quit my job and take care of her at home. It wasn't until she started kindergarten that her health gradually improved. After Hope started school, with the help of my parents, I opened a restaurant. I got up early and went to bed late every day, just to earn more money to pay off the debt. But while I was suffering so much for Hope, what was her biological mother, Lily, doing? She was working as a glamorous actress in the drama group. She went dancing in the Central Lake Square after work. She had Western food and coffee with her friends on weekends, and traveled with her friends during holidays. She lived a carefree and unrestrained life, never worrying about making a living. And her life became a dream that was out of my reach. Thinking of this, I gritted my teeth with hatred. Leo reached out and touched my forehead, and asked softly, "Why has your face suddenly turned so pale? Is there anywhere you feel uncomfortable? Do you want me to call the doctor for you?" I took the opportunity to respond and said through gritted teeth, "I'm feeling extremely dizzy now. The world is spinning around, and I feel like vomiting in waves. I can't even get up." Leo hesitated, then, "Should I go and call the doctor for you now?" I pretended to be in pain and closed my eyes. More than 10 minutes later, the doctor repeatedly told me that I couldn't be discharged from the hospital for the time being and that I had to be observed in the hospital. Otherwise, they would not be responsible for any problems that occurred. Lily stared blankly in the direction the doctor had left, and her eyes gradually turned red. She walked out of the ward in a disorganized manner. Leo looked at me, and in the direction the woman had left. Finally, having fulfilled Lair, he still chased after her. I pulled out the infusion needle in my hand and also followed them quietly. There were Lily's sobbing sounds, and the man's soothing voice full of pity coming from the stairwell. "Don't cry. My heart breaks when you cry. Don't worry. At the latest, I'll bring our daughter home in 2 days." The woman cried even harder. "You clearly promised me that you would bring Hope home today. Her health is already not good. When we left her at the gate of the Welfare Institute the day before yesterday, she was still coughing a bit. What if her condition gets worse?" Leo held the woman in his arms. "I also feel sorry for our daughter being alone in the Welfare Institute. But there's nothing we can do about it now. Without her being present, we can't complete the adoption procedures. It's all that bitch Violet's fault. The car accident didn't happen earlier or later, but just today. Don't cry anymore. I'll send you back first, and later I'll go to the Welfare Institute to see our daughter." I watched the two people's backs gradually fading away and stomped my feet in a hurry. I just hated that I didn't have a mobile phone to record what had just happened. That night, Leo didn't come to the hospital to keep me company. Early the next morning, after signing the voluntary discharge consent form, I directly went through the discharge procedures. Anyway, according to my memory from my previous life, there was really nothing wrong with my body. As soon as I walked into the staff housing compound, I heard several gossipy women pointing at me and starting to whisper. Looking at their expressions and eyes, they were probably laughing at me again for not being able to have children. I walked over. I smiled generously and said, "Oh, aunts. You're chatting? You were just talking about me not being able to have children, right?" A few of them looked a bit embarrassed on their faces. They quickly waved their hands repeatedly, saying, "No, no, no. You must have misheard." I smiled and explained. "Actually, it's not that I can't have children. It's Leo who has exasperate me. It's not my fault." The women were stunned for a moment, and then blurted out, "But I heard from Leo that you're a woman with a congenital vaginal obstruction and can't have children by nature. With a body like yours. In the old days, which decent family would dare to marry you?" The people next to her also chimed in. "Yeah. I heard that brother Leo passed away at a young age and didn't leave any children. Since you can't have children either, I think the family line of the Leo family is going to end in your hands." I squinted my eyes and smiled. I just wanted to explain who was really unable to have children. Since they were speaking so rudely, I didn't need to spare their feelings either. I asked the woman who spoke first, "Aunt Lee, have you broken off your affair with that man outside? Is Uncle Lee still hitting you because of that?" The woman suddenly looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief, as if I didn't see it. I turned to the woman in the middle and said, "Aunt Chiu, I heard that Ling Ling was only 19 years old when she got pregnant and wanted to marry her boyfriend. But her boyfriend's wife didn't agree to the marriage. Is that true?" The smile on her lips gradually faded away. I adhered to the principle of treating everyone equally and continued, "Oh. And Aunt Wang. Don't let Uncle Wang steal the steel from the factory and sell it anymore. If he's caught, he'll end up in prison. And your youngest son. Don't let him climb through the window at night to steal female comrades' underwear either." For a moment, it was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Just as they were about to explode, I casually left a sentence. "All these things were told to me by Leo. He likes to gossip about you with others when he has nothing to do. Don't let him know your secrets anymore." After saying that, I turned around and left. A burst of hysterical curses from the women came from behind. In the evening, as soon as Leo came back from work, he started shouting angrily, "Violet! Get out here right now." I easily walked out of the bedroom. After seeing the man's face clearly, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. His left cheek was swollen high. There were bloodstains at the corner of his mouth. There were several nail marks on his right cheek. And his hair was sticking up messily. He looked extremely discomfited. He roared at me. "What exactly did you say to the Zhu family? Why was I surrounded and beaten up by them as soon as I entered the gate of the staff housing compound? They also said something about making me keep your mouth in check." Ouch. It hurts so much. He covered his swollen cheek, grimacing in pain. I looked innocent and shook my head vigorously. "I don't know. When I came back this afternoon, they laughed at me for being a hen that can't lay eggs. I just talked back a few words. Then I raised my voice angrily and said, 'Just because of this, they actually dared to beat you? Do they think that everyone in the old Leo family is dead? Let's go. Let's go to the police station and ask the police officers to judge who's right and who's wrong.'" As I said that, I pulled him and was about to go out. Leo hesitated for a moment and shook off my hand. "Forget it. We're all neighbors. There must be some misunderstanding. I'll go to their house tomorrow and ask for clarification." He took off his cotton padded coat and hung it on the coat rack behind the door. And he wrung out a cold wet towel and applied it to his face. He hissed in pain several times. After a long while, he complained to me, "By the way, why didn't you tell me when you were discharged from the hospital? You made me go to the hospital for nothing. Since you've recovered, let's go through the adoption procedures tomorrow. If we delay any longer, the child might be adopted by someone else. And that would be a pity." I thought about it and didn't directly refuse. I just pretended to be in a dilemma and said, "Tomorrow won't work. My parents asked me to go back tomorrow. They said there's something going on at home." When I mentioned my parents, Leo's face showed some hesitation. Over the years since we got married, my parents had helped us a lot. His job at the steel factory was arranged through the connections of my brother's father-in-law back then. Naturally, he didn't want to offend my family of origin. I gave him some reassurance. The day after tomorrow then. I'll stay at my parents' house tomorrow night. The morning after tomorrow. You ride your bike to my parents' place. I'll ask my brother to drive his brother-in-law's car and take us to the Welfare Institute. It's so cold. I can't possibly hold the child and sit on the back seat of your bike to come back, right? Upon hearing this, Leo's brows gradually relaxed, and the smile on his face became more sincere. He hugged me tightly. My wife, you really think things through. Then I'll listen to you. We'll go through the adoption procedures the morning after tomorrow. Looking at his face, I felt so nauseous that I almost vomited. The next day, Leo was beaming with joy. Before going to work, he rarely gave me 500 yuan and told me not to go back to my parents' house empty-handed. I smiled and put the money in my pocket. I went shopping outside until it was almost time for Leo to get off work. Then I rode my bike unhurriedly straight to the residential area where Lily lived. The house where Lily lived now was a new one bought after Leo's eldest brother passed away. His parents were worried that she couldn't get out of the grief of losing her husband if she continued to lie in the previous house. So they took the initiative to sell the old house and bought this small two-bedroom apartment in the newly built residential area. The surrounding neighbors didn't know much about Lily's past. They thought she was the daughter of Leo's parents. Leo's parents didn't explain much either. After their son passed away, they really regarded Lily as their daughter. I sat in a noodle shop opposite the residential area and ordered a bowl of noodles. Before long, I saw Leo and Lily chatting and laughing as they entered the residential area together. It wasn't until it was completely dark and they didn't go out again that I left with peace of mind. At 9 o'clock in the evening, I banged on my in-laws' door so loudly that it shook the heavens. Dad. Mom. Open the door quickly. Something terrible has happened. Sister-in-law has been bullied by hooligans. Something has happened to sister-in-law. Open the door quickly. My in-laws lived in an old-fashioned corridor apartment, and the neighbors' houses were all closely adjacent to each other. Hearing my loud knocking on the door, the neighbors put on their clothes one by one and opened the doors, eagerly asking me what had happened. I burst into tears and gave a vivid performance. I said that there were several little hooligans who were fans of sister-in-law's troupe. Seeing that sister-in-law was beautiful, they actually tailed her all the way into the residential area. Leo was also injured by the hooligans while protecting sister-in-law. I managed to run out during the chaos. The people living here were all old neighbors of my in-laws. Most of them had watched Leo and his brother grow up. Now that the eldest son had passed away, his wife was being molested by hooligans. Their anger was ignited. They quickly went back home, put on their clothes, grabbed some weapons, and were going to teach those little hooligans a lesson. More than a dozen people rode their bicycles and arrived at Lily's door in great numbers. In the room, there were faint sounds of a woman begging for mercy. Stop it, please. I really can't take it anymore. Please. Spare me. But the begging sounds were really too ambiguous. It didn't seem like she was being bullied by hooligans, but more like flirting. For a moment, everyone looked at each other, not knowing whether they should rush in. My mother-in-law reacted first. Her face turned red, and she opened her mouth to smooth things over. There might be some misunderstanding. It's so late. Why don't you all go back first? But it was too late. With a loud bang, I kicked the front door open and shouted, Sister-in-law, don't be afraid. I brought people to save you. Then I shouted to the people behind me. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and come in with me to catch the hooligans. A few minutes later, everyone stared in disbelief as I straddled Leo and slapped the two people hiding under the quilt desperately. Leo, you son of a bitch. You're worse than a beast. Your eldest brother's body hasn't even cooled down. And you slept with your sister-in-law. Do you even know what shame is? Do you have any ethics or morals? This is incest. You're worse than pigs and dogs. Where do you think Mom and Dad's old faces will go? How can your eldest brother rest in peace under the ground? I'm going to beat you to shameless people to death. The two of them didn't dare to fight back at all. They were completely naked and could only tremble in fear, hiding under the quilt and shouting, Stop! Stop it now. There was no way I was going to stop. I slapped until my hands went numb and lost all feeling. In my previous life, I was treated like a fool and kept in the dark my whole life. I worked like a slave for them. In the end, I only deserved to collapse to adobe houses and a mountain of debt. The neighbors in the room didn't know whether to try to stop the fight or not. The commotion attracted the neighbors from Lily's residential area to come and watch. The room was crowded with people. My in-laws finally came to their senses from the great shock. They desperately pulled me off the bed. My dear daughter. We know you're angry. You've already beaten them and scolded them. Now come down and let them put on their clothes. We'll handle the rest for you. Seeing that I was still unmarried and just kept punching their heads fiercely one after another, my mother-in-law knelt down in front of me with a thump. Violet. Consider it as Mom begging you. Come down first and let them put on their clothes. Okay? I glanced around with the corner of my eye. Looking at the room full of people, I knew that the adultery of these two shameless people could no longer be hidden. I felt as if all the strength had been drained from my body. I slid off the bed and sat on the floor, covering my face and crying bitterly. I had to cover my face. I was afraid that my smile would be too obvious. All the irrelevant people in the room were asked to leave. My mother-in-law apologized to the old neighbors repeatedly. After sending them downstairs, she locked the door from the inside. She helped me up from the floor and let me sit on a chair in the living room. I still covered my face and sobbed silently. My father-in-law slapped the table and roared angrily. You two beasts. What are you still lying in bed for? Put on your clothes immediately and get out to the outer room. After a while, Elio, with his hair in a mess and blood all over his face, came out of the bedroom. Some of the injuries were from being scratched by the Zhu family yesterday, and some were from my scratching just now. He knelt down straight on the ground and didn't say a word. My father-in-law looked at him coldly and suddenly kicked him hard in the chest. Leo was kicked to the ground. He pursed his lips tightly, got up again, and knelt back in his original position. My father-in-law pointed at his nose and cursed. You beast. The one inside is your sister-in-law. She's your sister-in-law. How could you do such a despicable thing? You've never made me worry less since you were a child. You chased after chickens and dogs. Were naughty and caused trouble, relying on a bit of petty cleverness. You only knew how to be lazy and shirk your responsibilities. You're not even half as good as your elder brother. It's a pity that your elder brother doted on you and loved you when you were a child. Every time you did something wrong, it was your elder brother who protected you and took the blame for you. But it's only been 2 or 3 years since he passed away. Look at the despicable things you've done. My father-in-law was so angry that he couldn't catch his breath, and his hand pointing at Leo was shaking. I don't know which nerve of Leo's these words struck. He, who had been hanging his head all the time, suddenly raised his head and glared fiercely at his father. My father-in-law raised his hand and slapped him. What? You're still not convinced? Leo used his tongue to press against the cheek that his father had slapped, and suddenly he laughed. He slowly stood up. Then he casually spat out a mouthful of blood foam. He looked at his father provocatively. Yes, that thing fulfilled my obsession. I'm not as good as your eldest son in every way. But so what? No matter how good or excellent Leo was, he was still a short-lived person. He died when he was only 30 years old. Since I was a child, you've always compared me with Leo. In your eyes, I'm not as good as him in every aspect. When he married sister-in-law, you thought they were a perfect match. When I married Violet, you said I was punching above my weight. What was I punching above my weight for? You just saw that her family had a bit of money, and that her brother had married the daughter of a powerful family. So you were eager to send the matchmaker to propose marriage. But I'm telling you, I don't think much of Violet at all. The only person I like is my sister-in-law. I was so angry that I laughed. If you're going to pursue true love, then pursue it. Why do you have to belittle me? My father-in-law was so angry that his whole body was shaking. He sat down on the chair, covering his chest. My mother-in-law rushed up and covered Leo's mouth, then hit him twice hard, crying, You ungrateful wretch. Shut up quickly. Do you want to make your father so angry that he drops dead? Leo suddenly turned to look at me, and said sinister lie, Violet. You deliberately planned all of this, right? I pretended not to understand and looked innocent. You mean I deliberately planned for you to come to sister-in-law's place? Deliberately planned for you to take off your clothes and get into sister-in-law's bed? Deliberately planned for you and sister-in-law to be on top of each other and to flirt while laughing lascivious lie? Enough. Leo interrupted me furiously. He vigorously ran his hand through his messy hair and tried his best to suppress his anger. Since the truth has been revealed, there's no need for me to hide the matter between me and Lily. Violet, I want to divorce you. Get out of here. I don't want to see you anymore. Before I could answer, he looked at his parents again and said word by word, after the divorce, I will marry Lily. Whether you agree or not. If you agree, I'll still be your son. If you don't, you can just consider me dead like my elder brother. Now please all of you leave here. I fell silent. I had originally been worried that he would stubbornly refuse to divorce. Now it's fine. He took the initiative to pursue his own happiness. The divorce negotiation between Leo and me went smoothly. Except for his own personal items and clothes. Everything else belonged to me. Including the bicycle he had ridden for 3 years and all of his salary and bonuses for this year. Of course. He didn't agree at first. I threatened to go to Lily's drama troupe to find her leader and expose the scandal of her affair with her brother-in-law. Only then did Leo reluctantly compromise. He couldn't bear for his Lily to be hurt in the slightest. And this was also his condition. After getting the property, having fulfilled my abscess, I couldn't go to Lily's drama troupe to cause trouble anymore. I agreed, but whether I can do it or not is another matter. On the day we got the divorce certificate, Lily came along as well. As if deliberately declaring her sovereignty. She sat on the back seat of Leo's newly bought bicycle and hugged his waist tightly. After getting the certificate and walking out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Leo said to me angrily, Violet, I really didn't expect you to be such a despicable and scheming person. You've ruined the reputation of me and Lily. Do you know how the people in her community look at her now? Do you know how my colleagues at work talk about me? I looked coldly at the two perfect-looking people arm in arm. They don't think what they've done is disgraceful. Yet they actually think I've ruined their reputation. I sneered, I don't know how others see it. But in my eyes, you two are the standard examples of a man being a thief and a woman being a whore. You have no sense of shame and no face at all. Lily stopped in her tracks. And her little face turned pale. She sobbed delicately, Leo. She's scolding us so harshly. Leo flew into a rage, look at you now. Acting like a shrew. I really regret marrying you in the first place. Lily and I are in true love. Why do you have the right to slander her like this? You must apologize to Lily immediately. Or I'll make you pay for it. I looked at him like he was an idiot. Apologize to your mother. You asshole. I pedaled my bicycle and rode about 20 meters away. Only then did his roars and curses come from behind me. Huh. Is that all? After the divorce, I quickly resigned from my unit. In my previous life, I had experience in running a restaurant. So I used the money I got from the divorce and borrowed some from my parents to open a restaurant with 3 storefronts in the city center. There will be wave after wave of layoffs in the future. Even if I don't resign, I'm likely to be laid off in the future. What I need to do now is to save money and then quietly wait for the arrival of the bull market in the stock market in 1996. Because I clearly remember which stocks will make the most money. I had thought that after divorcing me, Leo would marry Lily as soon as possible and adopt Hope from the Welfare Institute, but he didn't. Instead, he dragged it out for 2 or 3 months. Once, by chance, on a rainy day, I met Leo's mother who had fallen on the street. After sending her to the clinic, she held my hand and chatted with me. And then I learned the reason. After the affair was discovered, that scandal spread far and wide. Leo's father and mother felt so ashamed that they directly moved back to their hometown in the countryside. After returning to the countryside, Leo's father fell ill. Leo's mother came to the city this time to sell the old house they lived in. Leo had gone back to look for his parents, hoping that they would move back to the city so that they could help him take care of Hope. But Leo's father didn't even open the gate of the courtyard. When Leo and I got divorced, he basically left the marriage with nothing. The salary in the steel factory wasn't paid monthly. Sometimes it was paid every 3 months. And sometimes every 6 months. So he didn't have much money on him at all. And Lily's salary was basically spent on pursuing the quality of life. Especially since she was an actress in a drama troupe. Due to her profession, she paid even more attention to her image. The two of them didn't have extra money to raise a child, nor could they afford a nanny. So the matter of adopting the child had to be postponed again and again. When I learned that Lily and Leo hadn't gotten married yet, I was secretly anxious. How could this be? True love should be firmly locked in. So, after going home, I immediately wrote a letter of complaint and sent it to the drama troupe where Lily worked. I reported that she had forged false medical records, defrauded the salary, and damaged the interests of the unit. In addition, she had interfered in someone else's marriage, given birth to an illegitimate daughter, seriously damaged someone else's marital relationship, and violated basic morality. Only by cutting off her career will she be able to throw herself wholeheartedly into Leo's arms. As for Leo, I won't touch his job for the time being. After all, what if he gets laid off and Lily doesn't want to be with him? My restaurant had only been in operation for about half a year, and the business was getting more and more prosperous. In these days, state-owned restaurants still accounted for the majority in the city, but the attitude of most of the service staff left much to be desired. I trained my employees according to the service-first model. They provided smiling service, were enthusiastic in their attitude, and never overcharged customers. If customers ordered too many dishes, we would kindly remind them to avoid waste. After the meal, we would give them a plate of seasonal fruits. There were more and more repeat customers, and the reputation was getting better and better. In the sweltering heat of July, because I always couldn't catch my breath in my chest, I went to the city hospital for an examination. Unexpectedly, in the hospital corridor, I met Leo, who was holding Hope. He sat on the bench with a dull look in his eyes, and his face was pale. I hadn't seen him for just over half a year, and he had aged a lot. His hair was messy, and he had a beard. Indeed, whoever takes care of a child will look older. After walking out of the consulting room, I heard a commotion coming from the consulting room next door. "Doctor, please save my daughter. I really can't raise that much money to take her to a big city for treatment. You have such good medical skills. Please think of a way. I heard from others that you're an expert in treating heart diseases. You must have a way. Please save my child." I looked around, but I didn't see Lily's figure. The doctor's voice was full of anger. "What's the point of you kneeling here? If I could save the child, would I just sit back and do nothing? I've said that your daughter's condition is too complicated. We can't do the treatment here. And no one in our hospital can perform this kind of surgery. You have to go to Beijing or Shanghai for treatment. Get up quickly and don't delay other patients from seeing the doctor." I watched from outside as Leo's back slowly slumped, and finally he collapsed on the ground. I understood his feelings at this moment very well because in my previous life, I was just like him now. But in this life, whether that baby girl lives or dies has nothing to do with me. I turned around and wanted to leave. "Violet." The man behind me suddenly called out to me. He staggered up to me holding the child. "Violet, can you lend me 80 yuan? Hope has been diagnosed with heart disease and needs surgery." I was stunned by his words. Mainly, I really didn't expect him to be so brazen. "Leo, haven't you had your brain kicked by a donkey? You're asking me to borrow money to treat the illegitimate child you had with Lily?" Leo was taken aback. "What are you talking about? Hope is the child I adopted from the Welfare Institute." I looked at him coldly and sneered. "What do you think? Just because others don't say it, do you think they're fools? Then do you dare to go to the hospital for an appraisal?" Unexpectedly, Leo didn't argue anymore. He looked at me pleadingly. "Violet, all the mistakes are mine and Lily's. It has nothing to do with Hope. The doctor said that if she doesn't have the surgery, she will die. Please, can you go and borrow tens of thousands of yuan from your brother?" Now he remembered my brother. I looked at his pleading and desperate face and curled my lips into a cold smile. "Didn't you look down on my brother for marrying the daughter of a powerful family before? Why do you have the nerve to borrow money from him now? It's really disgusting for you to act like this." trying to have it both ways. Leo opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. I directly interrupted him. I don't have the nerve to ask my brother for money. You might as well go and borrow from him directly, and see if he's willing to lend it to you. After saying that, I turned around and left. Ever since my brother knew about his affair, he had been looking for an opportunity to teach him a lesson. If he dares to borrow money, he should also find out why the flower is so red. By the way, I heard that Leo has been so worried about raising the surgery fee for his daughter recently that he can't eat or sleep properly. I know that this is the best time for me to hit a man when he's down. Just as I was about to write a letter of complaint to Leo's unit, reporting that he had taken advantages from others by abusing his power. However, the news suddenly came that Leo had been arrested for embezzling public funds. I was so excited that I went around making inquiries and finally found out the specific reason for his arrest. The taboo of affair between Leo and his sister-in-law had spread like wildfire in the steel factory. But since I, the victim, didn't cause a scene, the leaders of the factory turned a blind eye. They just quietly crossed his name off the list of candidates for promotion to manager. Later, Lily was fired from the troupe and simply moved to the staff housing compound of the steel factory where Leo lived, although everyone talked about it a lot. But one was divorced and the other was a widow. Even though they were in the relationship of a younger brother-in-law and a widowed sister-in-law, others couldn't find any major fault with it. After getting married, they adopted a baby girl with a heart disease from the Welfare Institute. Since bringing the child home, the two of them had big arguments every 3 days and small arguments every 2 days. Gradually, Lily seldom went home. In order to get medical treatment for the child, Leo borrowed money from all his colleagues around him. But everyone was not very well off. As the saying goes, help in an emergency, not with chronic poverty. As time went by, few people were willing to lend him money anymore. Just when Leo was at a loss as to how to raise the surgery fee for his daughter, a payment of more than 70,000 yuan from the factory for goods arrived in his hands. As a result, after much hesitation, he embezzled this sum of money for his daughter's surgery. Just 1 month after Leo embezzled the public funds, it was discovered by the finance department of his unit, and they reported it to the police. Leo was taken away by the police for investigation. However, because his daughter was physically weak and needed care, and the child's mother was not around, the police granted him bail pending trial. The legal affairs department of the steel factory asked Leo to return the 70,000 yuan within a month, and then they would no longer pursue legal liability. But the money had already been used for Hope's surgery, and Leo simply couldn't pay it back. In the end, Leo's father and mother scraped together the money, and together with the money from selling the house before, they paid the money back to the unit for their son. After this incident, Leo was naturally fired. The house in the staff housing compound of the steel factory where he lived was also taken back. Helplessly, he had to take Hope back to the countryside. As for Lily, she seemed to have disappeared from the city all of a sudden, and no one knew where she had gone. Time passed quickly, and several years went by. With the money I earned from running a restaurant and stock trading, I bought 2 houses in the capital city. At the same time, I also expanded my restaurant business to the capital. I handed over the original restaurant to my cousin to manage, and I received a 20% share of the profits every year. In the following years, I was busy opening new stores and investing in real estate. After I had more savings in my hands, I gradually slowed down my work pace. Later, through the introduction of a friend, I started a new relationship. His name is Hector, and he is engaged in organic chemistry research. He has also been through a divorce. However, his divorce was different from mine and Leo's. There was no infidelity or betrayal between them. It was purely due to different life concepts. His ex-wife is a woman who loves adventure and travel and likes challenges, such as climbing snowy mountains, rock climbing, going deep into the jungle or grassland, etc. But he prefers a stable life and would rather stay at home reading books and listening to music on weekends. Since the two of them felt that they were not suitable for each other, they divorced peacefully. When I took Hector home to meet my parents, my brother was overly enthusiastic and made him drink a lot of alcohol. My brother himself also drank quite a bit. After dinner, I didn't ask the driver to take us back. Instead, I walked arm in arm with him, strolling back slowly. When we passed Chunming Road, we saw a steaming wonton stall. Thinking that Hector had been drinking all night and hadn't eaten much, I pulled him over, intending to let him have a bowl of hot wontons to warm his stomach. But when I saw the boss wearing an apron clearly, I stood there stunned. It was Leo. Next to him sat a thin and weak little girl, holding a cloth doll, and she was sitting on a stool, swinging her legs bored-lie, probably feeling something. The man who was wrapping wontons looked up at me. Our eyes met. Leo's face was full of shock, and his eyelashes trembled. "Violet, you're here." When his gaze fell on the hands that Hector and I were holding, his body stiffened for a moment. His voice was dry as he asked, "Is this your boyfriend?" I nodded. Leo's eyes gradually dimmed. Hector seemed to guess Leo's identity. He pointed ahead and whispered, "You two talk. I'll go ahead to sober up. Call me if you need anything." He didn't go very far. Just about 20 or 30 meters away. At this time, the thin and small girl beside us came over. She took Leo's hand and asked, "Daddy, I'm so sleepy and cold. When can we go home?" Leo touched her head lovingly. "Hope, be good. Let's hold on for a little while longer. And then we'll have enough money for Hope's medicine and the tuition fee for the next semester. By the way, this is Violet. Say hello to Auntie." He stammered as if he had thought of something. I took out a box of chocolates from my bag and handed it to her. "Hello." Hope looked up at her father. Seeing Leo nod, she happily took the chocolates from my hand. "Thank you, Violet." Holding the chocolates, she sat back on the tall stool again. Leo looked at her back and sighed. "Hope had a heart stent surgery when she was a child and has to take anticoagulant drugs for life. Lily doesn't care about her. After I was fired from the steel factory, she ran away with another man and even took away the more than $1,000 I had left on me before she left." There was a glimmer of tears in his eyes. "Violet, I was wrong. I shouldn't have divorced you in the first place. I brought all this on myself. If I say I regret it, will you give me another chance?" I looked at him quietly, feeling that some of his expressions were extremely familiar. He raised his hand and wiped his tears with his sleeve. "Do you want to have a bowl of wontons? You always used to like the shrimp wontons I made." My heart suddenly trembled. I'm sure that Leo has also been reborn. Because he only made wontons for me for the first time on our 10th wedding anniversary. As a result, it turned into a mess. But he didn't give up and tried again and again. Later, I read in his diary that it was because Lily liked wontons. And he thought that the restaurants outside were not hygienic. So he learned to mix the fillings and wrap the wontons himself, using my stomach as a test first. Thinking of this, I smiled sarcastically. "Forget it. I can't afford the wontons you make. You'd better save them for your sister-in-law." A look of embarrassment flashed across Leo's face. He straightened his back and turned to take a bottle of milk from the glass cabinet and placed it in front of me. "I remember you often suffered from insomnia at night and had the habit of drinking milk." I didn't even look at the bottle of milk. I stared straight at his right leg and asked in surprise, "You're limping?" He looked down at his leg and his expression was pained. When Hope was 4 years old, I took her to the hospital for a follow-up examination. Suddenly, she ran into the middle of the road. In order to save her, my right leg was run over by a car. I've been limping ever since. No unit is willing to hire a cripple. So I set up a stall to sell wontons. His voice became lower and lower, with a hint of a choke. "Violet, I regret it. I really regret it. If I hadn't been obsessed with lust in the first place, I wouldn't have ended up where I am today." I looked at his eyes mockingly. "Leo, Davio, you may really regret it now. But you just regret not having been able to hide it from me. If you'd had managed to hide it, what would you have done?" Leo looked dazed. I continued, "You would have enjoyed the sense of immorality of having an affair with Lily behind my back. You would have secretly transferred the property and left me with a mountain of debt." A look of guilt and panic flashed in Leo's eyes. "What do you mean by that?" I said coldly, "You naturally know what I mean. Stop pretending. I know you've been reborn. I've read everything you wrote in your diary. Leo's body trembled. After a long while, his knees went weak, and he knelt down straight in front of me. I'm sorry. I know it's too late to say anything. I just hope you can forgive what I did to you in the previous life. I looked down at him, my tone icy cold. Leo, you're a complete piece of trash. Once I hated you so much that I wished I could cut you into pieces. But now, I won't. I won't forgive you. Nor will I hate you. Because to me, you're no different from the maggots in a cesspool. Leo suddenly raised his head, his lips trembling slightly. He seemed to want to say something, but the words caught in his throat. Later, I never saw Leo again. I also rarely heard any news about him. He was like a grain of sand, swept away by the torrent of life, and the page of the story about him was gently turned over. When my son was 2 years old, Hector and I took him to his grandparents' house. An old friend invited me to a small gathering. During the chat with my friend, I heard the news that Hope had died of a myocardial infarction. To be honest, I was quite shocked. After asking in detail, I learned that she had stopped taking anticoagulant drugs privately, which led to the formation of a blood clot in the stent and triggered a myocardial infarction. It turned out that Leo had been making a living by running a wanton stall on Chunming Street, and his income could barely make ends meet. Later, the urban management strengthened and the management and no longer allowed people to set up stalls privately. The wanton stall was forced to close. In order to earn money, Leo went to work on a construction site carrying bricks. But because of his lame leg, the amount of work he could do was limited. Hope felt sorry for her father and thought that she could save a little money. So at the age of just 12, she secretly stopped taking the anticoagulant drugs. After Hope's death, Leo had been in a semi-mad state. He often shouted that his daughter was a top student from a prestigious university, 985 University, and that he himself was a president with a net worth of over 100 million yuan. At Hope's funeral, Lily came back with a boy who was about 5 or 6 years old. The boy was chubby and strong, and it was obvious that he had been well taken care of, which formed a sharp contrast with Hope's thinness before her death. The boy complained that the funeral was not fun at all, and pestered his mother to take him to the amusement park and buy him KFC. Lily hugged him to comfort him. After we bury your sister, Mom will take you to the amusement park and buy you KFC. When Leo heard this, his eyes turned bloodshot. He let out a roar, grabbed Lily's hair, dragged her to Hope's coffin, and slammed her head against the coffin hard, again and again. The bang, wadarda sigh, bang, bang sounds were terrifying and dull. It was as if a death knell had been tolled for Hope. Half an hour later, Lily was taken away by the ambulance 120, and Leo was taken away by the police. My friend said that Leo's experiences in the past few years could definitely be turned into a book. It was so full of melodrama and so dramatic. I twitched the corners of my mouth, but I couldn't manage a smile. Fate always turns around unexpectedly. Different choices can change the course of one's life. They chose the paths they wanted to take and fulfilled their own karma. And I, too, have embarked on my own journey. In the future, with the vicissitudes of life, I hope we will never meet again. The end.